Now, our first guest tonight is someone who loves the arts and the idea of being creative. He doesn't, though, like to be labelled as one type of artist over another.
So instead of calling him a poet or a spoken word artist, we'll introduce him by his name, which is Bunmi Hazzan.
Don't you dare call my unicorn a pet. My unicorn stands erect, her muscles flex when she takes a stride. Pride does not describe her majesty. The fact that most think she's a travesty is a tragedy, and you say to me, there's no evidence. I say you are looking in the wrong places. There are spaces on earth that humans never go to. Perhaps you were told not to, or perhaps you were going to but could not see what was in front of you and decided it wasn't worth another step. But don't you dare call my unicorn a pet. My unicorn has wings like Pegasus, can fly long distances, high above tall buildings, and can summon when my call in it. Yo, my unicorn slays demons, destroys feeble creatures, and when she goes to war, the devil packs his suitcase. And in case you are wondering, her horn is made from the gold you will find at the end of the rainbow. Her voice is like the sound of a halo where no homo sapiens can ever brand their mark upon her chest. So don't you dare call my unicorn a pet. Salam.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is incredible, this unicorn that you're protecting so much. And a lot of your poetry is very much about getting into the depth of our existence. Why is that so important to you?
I think it's important to know who you are. And I think, for me at least anyway, one of the best ways to find out who you are is to explore yourself, explore your creativity. So a lot of what I do is spent trying to get out what's in my mind onto paper and just letting it fall out, letting it write without restricting myself in terms of how long it's going to be or whether I can say this or that. Just let it all out, then come back to it afterwards and let it tell me about itself, and let that in turn tell me about myself.
Yeah, wow.
Now you said you don't like to be defined as a poet or a spoken word artist. It's quite a broad spectrum there, right? So how would one define you?
Well, it's not so much I don't like the terms. I mean, if you want to call me a poet, spoken word artist, that is completely fine, just to be clear, by the way. But it's more that I try not to be limited in terms of what I do with it. And I think art itself is very broad, and creativity is very broad, and I believe everybody has something creative about them, and it's not always going to be something typical like poetry or music. It'd be something so unique to yourself. It's more that I like to explore what can be done with it, and rather not limit myself to say a specific style or specific theme.
Now, being a creative person, it's very interesting that you say that you're on a journey through a thought process, not limiting yourself to one existence. Did I get that right?
That's exactly
I think
right,
I did.
yeah.
I think I got that right. Explain that to us. What does this amazing phrase mean?
Well, yeah, just that. Try not to be limited. There's so much out in there, and I think this world, let's say the world is this big, and you might live till you're 100 years old. You may realistically never see more than this much of it. But when you start placing all these unnecessary limits on yourself as to, I can only write this, I can only say that, then you cut this down to that. So there's so much out there, that you could explore. And when you start placing these unnecessary limits on yourself, you reduce your own world to this much, and then you become narrow-minded, and you then maybe can't see things from a different perspective and how other people may experience life. And as much as possible, try to understand there are other people with so many different ideas that they're all valid.
No, that's really deep there, but you also refer yourself as a travelling mad scientist.
Yeah, the time travelling mad scientist. Wow. Well, that was how can I explain that? That's time travel is a theme that's come up a lot in my poetry, especially over the last year. I mean, a little bit before, but more so over the last year. And I guess in the end it came to me, and it just sounded cool. When I was writing, it was in a piece called the Time Traveler's Ascension when I wrote that down, and as I'm writing, you try to be aesthetically to the ears, pleasing as much to the ears, and it just came out as I was writing it down. A time traveling mad science experiment with ancient hieroglyphics. So it's
not inspired by Doc Brown then. from Back to the Future. That's such an 80s reference. Everyone just looked and said, what?
Oh, Doc Brown, right, okay. So, Doctor, a little bit. I mean, yeah, I love Back to the Future. And, yeah, I watched those films back in the 80s. I've been watching them since. And, you know, Doctor Who and just The Time Machine and just about everything with time travelling. So, yeah, it's all in there. I mean, I make a lot of references to TV shows and films and so yeah.
Now, it's fair to say that, I mean, that performance you gave us at the beginning was so deep, and we were listening to that and we were thinking, I was thinking, unicorn, who's this unicorn that he's referring to? And it's fair to say, I think some of your lyrics sort of rise above the general adjectives that we might use. What have your audiences said about this, and what did they say? What's the reaction been?
Varied. It's, I mean, some people come to you afterwards and they will get something from it that perhaps I didn't intend. I think one of the beauties about art is that as I'm writing something, I might have an idea of what I mean by it, and then somebody hears it and they think something completely different, but it's all still valid because it means something different to each individual. So with the unicorns, yeah, some people laugh about it, you know, unicorns, that's silly, whatever.
I liked it. I was thinking, who is this unicorn? He's so well protected.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the unicorn was just something really fascinating to me. About a year or so ago, I became really interested in this mythical creature. And I found that the earliest reference to the unicorns was about 3000 BC in China, where they believed that the unicorn would only make appearances during times of peace. And I just thought that was really interesting, the fact that, you know, this world hasn't seen peace for such a long time. Who knows, maybe that's why we don't see unicorns anymore. So.
Look, Bunmi, thank you so much for joining us. It's really thought-provoking, interesting, deep discussion there. And hopefully we'll get a performance from you later on as well.
Well, indeed.